Good afternoon. I'm standing at the junction of the Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation at Swinton Junction. I would stress that this area is not normally accessible by foot, only by boat, and I've only managed to get here because I've been doing some work in a nearby building, so I've just managed to cross. The junction between the Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation is formed at this point. I hope you can see the boom there across, and the junction bears off to my left hand side, and that is the start of the Dern and Dove Canal. Now, I'm not going to speak much about the Dern and Dove Canal today. That might be for another occasion. But as you can see, if you were to actually attempt to sail up the Dern and Dove Canal, you wouldn't get very far at all today, because it's occupied by the boatyard of Waddington's Limited, and so the canal is not in water at all, and you wouldn't get very far that way. So I really want to concentrate today on the Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation. Now, there's a big difference. I speak about the Dern and Dove Canal, and I speak about the Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation. A navigation is a waterway which is actually partly a natural river. So the sections of that river have been canalised to form a route, to form a navigation, and then that's generally interspersed with traditional canal building, the cut, the cut, if you like, and an old expression for canal in Yorkshire is going down the cut, or kids swimming in the cut, that kind of thing. Now the canals are purely man-made. So the Dern and Dove Canal was a man-made waterway. The Sheffield South Yorkshire navigation is, of course, man-made, but it's partly navigable river, as in the River Don, and partly man-made cut. So the section that we have here, this is the section between two parts of the River Don. That we would join the River Don just up beyond Kilnest, and likewise going towards the sea, going towards Hull, we would join the River Don around about Dennerby. Now, obviously, navigating on a river and sailing a boat on a canal is two different sets of skills, because on the river you have to be conscious of the currents, of the flow of the water, whereas the canal is more sort of stable, a more stable environment for the boats. The reason for the Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation was pretty much the business community in Sheffield were finding it very, very difficult to get their products away for export, away to be shipped to further parts of the UK. The only method they had in those days was things like pack horses. Now, pack horses were very slow, very expensive, because you had to pay the people who looked after the pack horses, you had to feed them, and all that expense incurred. And also, there's only a certain limit a horse can carry, no matter how strong the pack horse is. So there were several attempts to get a navigation right the way through to reach Sheffield primarily. But to cut a long story short, they began works from the Doncaster side, and they reached Aldwalk, going further upstream. They reached Aldwalk in 1733. So around about that time, the area through Swinton would have been constructed, and the people who dug the canals, who dug the waterways, were called navigators, or navvies for short. And that's why we get the term the navvy, meaning like a workman, a labourer, and the navvies also then went on to build the railways. Now, Swinton became a real canal centre because it became an area for boat building. Before the Waddingtons began their boat building, there was a man called Thomas Scoley who constructed canal boats in Swinton. There are also shipyards in Mexborough, boatyards in Mexborough as well. And in addition to the boatyards in Swinton, we also had a bargeman's mission. a building that was used for rest, recreation, and also for the barge communities to get some religion as well. So like a seaman's mission, it was a bargeman's mission right here in Swinton. Now, of course, in the early days, most of the canal boats were relying on sail. However, in this particular area of South Yorkshire, we had many, many low bridges, so they had to use horse-drawn propulsion to get the boats moving. And so then we had a trade developing called the horse marine. Now, the horse marine was basically a proprietor of he had a stable of horses, and he would hire out his horses to the barge operators to tow their barges through. And Swinton was actually a station for horse marines. So a very strange term, but that's exactly what it meant. And if you look back on the census records, people give their occupation as horse marine. A very, very great uncle on my mum's side was actually one of the horse marines as well, going way back. I've got canal connections in my own family, which quite proud of. The canals did very, very well shipping large goods, and coal particularly was a great product to move by water, because you could get a lot of material in the canal barges. Things started to get a bit problematic on the coming of the railways, though, around about the sort of 1840s. However, Sheffield and South Yorkshire Navigation Company, not to be outdone by the railways, thought, well, we can actually thrive on this. And so I've got an advertisement here, a copy of an advertisement, which I hope you can see this. It's the Doncaster and Swinton Aquabus. So we got a poster here, and the Aquabus actually was timed to leave Swinton train station, every morning except on a Sunday. It didn't give a specified time, but it says on the arrival of the down train, which leaves Derby at 6, Sheffield at 7:30, and then the up train, that one that comes in from Leeds, arrives at 7:15. And you could buy a fare. In the best cabin was a shilling, and in the fore cabin it was 9 old pence. So the link between, if you're coming in from Sheffield and you want to go to Doncaster, or you're coming in from Leeds, you want to go to Doncaster from that direction, you got off the train at Swinton Station, and then you walked over and you got on the Aquabus. And the Aquabus then would chug you down the navigation into Doncaster. So quite good business sense, which lasted for about 9 years, from about 1840 to about 1849. They used the Aquabus as a watery means of transport to get people the rest of the journey to Doncaster before the railway was built into Doncaster. Now, the Sheffield and South Yorkshire Navigation is about 43 miles in length, right the way from Keedby in Lincolnshire through to Sheffield Basin. Now, to get through to Sheffield in this direction, you have to go through the Tinsley Flight. Very, very slow, lots and lots of locks, but it's the only way to get you into the city centre of Sheffield. So the commercial trade ceased to go into the centre of Sheffield in 1971. What happened was, I'm moving forward in time now, because in the 1970s and into the early 1980s, much of the canal system, the Sheffield and South Yorkshire Navigation, was modernised to take much larger barges, and also the lock system was adapted, so it was easier to you weren't manually operating the locks. You used automatic lock gates. And I'm walking along the side now of Swinton Lock, and it's absolutely huge, and it was designed for commercial waterways traffic, and lots of improvements to the canal, lots of capacity. However, the commercial side never really took off. I'm sorry to say, we have a regular oil tanker comes up now, and the commercial side is actually terminates in Rotherham. As I said, they stopped the freight traffic to Sheffield in 1971. So Rotherham would now be the terminus of freight. But unfortunately, the canals never really took off now in this area for commercial waterways. What we have, though, is we have a lot of leisure activity, but not a great deal of leisure activity on the Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation, not like other canals. Partly because you have to go up to Sheffield, you have to go through the Tinsley Flight, which is very time consuming, and then you have to turn around and go back. So even recreational waterways is limited on this canal. And that's just how it is. That's just how the waterway geography has left us. But an example is coming past this lock, and interestingly, we have a plaque here, and it's named after Mr. Victor Waddington. He actually opened the lock, the official opening, on the 28th of April in 1982. So the Waddingtons were very much involved in freight transport on the waterways, as well as boat building, and in honour of Mr. Waddington, whose nickname was the Canal King, they named this lock right here at Swinton, appropriately, right at the side of their premises, in his honour. So that's another piece of little history. Now, you can see that the great hopes were to try and encourage commercial activity on the waterways, but as I say, it never really happened. And then another real impact of it was the closure of the South Yorkshire coalfields, because much of the traffic on the waterways was coal in bulk, and obviously we're not digging coal, we don't need to transport it. So that's just a quick run round of the Sheffield and South Yorkshire navigation. Hopefully in better days we can see boats going up and down here again, but at the moment, sadly, the waterways are closed other than for essential traffic. So thank you for listening in, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. I might have to change the time tomorrow because I've got a Skype meeting which will probably not be finished, but look out for an amended time if slightly later. But thank you for listening, and stay safe, and bye bye.